I'm on mute! Excellent way to start your day. Once again, working on the Chromie comic. Too much random crap on my desk. Need to warm up my hand a bit. It on me. I'm so sad to be lonely. I search for the vapor. Insane or sinner. In our skin, so sudden into violence. It's such like a virus. It's anything as violence. Out of my hands, somebody save me from myself. Ooh, ooh. I feel the nights that might get hideous. Why so serious? Ooh, ooh. I feel the nights that it might get hideous. Why so serious? And so down the violence. You can say I'm in violence. You sleep in silence out. Blood on my hands. Somebody save me from myself. The mic get hideous. Why so serious? After the life, cause it might get hideous. Why so serious? Cause it might get hideous. Why so serious? Earthquake. Holy earthquake. Holy earthquake. Holy earthquake. You know that you got everything. Messed up and I'm horny. If I'm being honest. I'm so jealous of you. I'm so jealous. Do us about you. You're so perfect. You know that you got everything. Just a bit more. I'm jealous. Honestly, if that word in that song isn't I messed up and I'm horny, I don't want it to be anything else, so I'm just gonna keep singing it that way. I assumed it's I messed up and I'm lonely, but she says I messed up and I'm horny. And that's also just a valid thing to be dealing with while being jealous of somebody who has your boyfriend that you wanted so badly, or some shit like that. I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it. I messed up and I'm horny. Yep, that can also be a valid story. My God, I was talking to this really annoying person on the forums earlier, and I mean they have when you say drink the Kool-Aid, like somebody who's just like fucking bought into something so fucking hard that they don't even make sense anymore. But there's so many people who are so angry about, like, how their representation happened when that representation is anything but a straight white male. Which is just ridiculous. On so many levels. Just, like, also relax. Like, also there can be other stories. Also, it's okay if there are other stories. Also, other stories can also be good, even if they don't feature somebody who looks or acts precisely like you. Like, it's literally okay if those things happen. You can calm down, and it can also be okay. Like, you could enjoy stories from other cultures. You can enjoy stories that feature people who don't look like you. Like, all of these are possibilities. You could actually choose to enjoy the story and be like, that's a story. Wow, that's a story that features somebody who doesn't look like me. And not be fried about it. Like the whole thing is you're choosing to just lose your fucking mind over, you know. Now, I get there is a valid level of irritation that can happen because Blizzard did reveal that they basically have a wheel of minorities that they spin to create minority characters for their properties so that they hit certain check marks. And that's an ugly process. On a certain level, you could even say it's sort of a funny process, but it is an ugly process. It's not having the creativity to come up with a queer person of color and put that in your story. It's literally being like, well, we have all these characters that we created that are basically just white people. Now we're gonna decorate them with sprinkles, and those sprinkles are minorities, and then people won't get mad at us. And it's like, that's distasteful. I get that. But the thing is, the people who are French fried about this, the people who are really mad about it, aren't the people who are being misrepresented and their culture's not actually being observed. It's the white people who are like, and as white people, grow up. on a given level, you don't have a right to be offended. Because you could even just wink and nod and say, yep, they filled in that checkbox, and the story's enjoyable. But instead they're like, no, I filled in a checkbox, and therefore it's bad! And it's like, you aren't even the person who's supposed to be offended by this. Or has any right to be offended by this. Do I think that they do that necessarily all of the time? I would hope they don't. But even if that's how Overwatch was done, because apparently that is how Overwatch was done, I still feel like they've gotten somewhat better at bringing in characters who have different backgrounds. Case in point, Phelan feels like a good character. I don't hate her. She's not a screaming stereotype in any direction. She is disabled and works around it, but there's two types of stories you really can tell about somebody who has a disability. Either the one in terms of they aren't someone who necessarily takes good care of themselves because they either have a point to prove or they just want to be active, despite the fact that there's an increased level of danger or whatever. That person can either learn to deal with their disability and work past it, or they can adopt the most cool technologies of the times to robot their way past it. And remember, disability isn't a bad word. It really isn't. It just means they can't do certain things. Phelan can't see out of one of her eyes. That doesn't make her... That isn't a judgment on her as a person. It's just true. But if you're gonna get mad about a paladin with one eye doing stuff, in World of Warcraft, where there's literally been multiple characters who had one eye, and are fighters, and are active in this service, we can't complain about Phelan. In terms of one-armed fighters, as far as I know, she's the first who didn't have some sort of construct or technology to quote-unquote fix the situation. But the Arathi certainly didn't have Mechanome technology. They don't have Titan technology. They have their own steampunkish technology that's kind of even 4 or 5 steps behind what, like, say, the Earthen do. So her complaint about this not being good enough and I don't have time to learn it anyway, totally valid. Like, one thing I've learned from watching a lot of content creators on YouTube who deal with prosthetics is that getting a prosthetic is a process. It's not a one deal and done. Ideally, you want it to be, but generally speaking, there's fittings and training, physical therapy that goes into it, time spent learning how to use it, time spent dealing with potential further surgeries to deal with an increase in pain whenever you use your prosthetic. There's a process that goes into it, and Phelan was right in the middle of, like, defending her people. If the Nerubians weren't attacking, if there was actual peace in the land, I can see Phelan being like, okay, fine, you know what? I'll try it for a week, and we'll see what happens. But when the world is burning down around you, yeah, it's not a story of, oh my god, she's such a Mary Sue because she didn't accept this gift. It's, oh my god, she prioritized. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what she did. She prioritized her time. She knew she didn't have the time to deal with all of the stuff that goes along with it. But the thing is, because that story was there, and because that story was something that everyone in the disabled community recognizes as a truth, like that's just a truth of dealing with prosthetics. It takes time to deal with them and learn to use them. One has to trust that they looked into it. Because that storyline isn't something you see in, say, that's something you're gonna see on YouTube from disabled advocates, or disability advocates. Not so much something you're going to witness, you know, watching the Paralympics every 4 years, if you bother to watch it at all. Or, you know, feel good. This person did this thing and won this race. Look at that. It's super cool. Feel good stories also generally don't talk about the nitty-gritty of what goes into dealing with prosthetics. Which says to me that unlike 99% of the spin the wheel, make a minority character stuff that they did with Overwatch, they actually did some research into disability stuff with Phelan. And that's good! That's a good thing! They didn't just spin the wheel and just say, yep, nope, she just fights with one hand and congratulations. They actually went through with why she doesn't have a prosthetic and why she doesn't want one right now. But that she's tried them before. That whole thing is something that screams they did some of their homework. Which is a massive improvement to me. But people, anyways, this chick was just getting, I say chick because she was using a female avatar. If she was actually a dude, always possible. Not sure which, but we'll just go with the presented gender on the forum. Was going off about how the term representation really upsets them now, and how, you know, someone who appreciates the revenge fantasy that Alex Straza went through for the crimes committed against her and her flight, which are heinous, and definitely come from an era of writing where, you know, Game of Thrones level, everybody, war is hell bullshit. If you don't know, you can look into Alex Straza's history and her treatment by the Dragon Maw clan and what happened to her and her brood. But the thing is, there's two ways to tell the story of someone who's been, like, you know, dealt a hand like that. Her story being that way. She can be one of two things. She can be a terrified waif, she can be a tyrant, or she can do what Alex Straza did, which was basically to take charge and take the shit out of everybody who fucked with her. And I liked that. They certainly didn't have to do that. That isn't the usual storyline that gets presented. Not very often, anyways. Like, even in movies, not very often. But to me, I like the concept that you know, kicking ass, taking charge, taking back your space. I'm big on that. Now, admittedly, the way she kicked ass, took charge, and took back her space, on a given level, was to commit genocide a couple of times. Should things get that far in real life? Fuck no, she went a bit far. But I mean, there is a big old divide between fantasy and reality. So I can appreciate the fact that she took her revenge. I can also appreciate the fact that that kind of revenge in real life is kind of a bit dramatic, a bit much, a bit awful, you know. Both of those things can be true. So I happen to mention, you know, I like I like what they did to rectify the crimes committed against Alexstrasza. I like her revenge fantasy, and you know, the way they have dealt with her character has actually been pretty decent overall. Because it could have been a lot worse. There's a lot of examples in World of Warcraft where a female character, you know, was absolutely obliterated by bad writing from a specific female hater who just made it his mission to ruin every decent female character by either turning them into a screaming waif, a useless moron, or an absolute unspeakable bitch. This literally happened so many fucking times, and was so frustrating to me, that Alexstrasza being an exception to that rule is remarkable. It's actually remarkable that she managed to not take any of that character assassination that so many other female characters did, which I include Sylvanas, the Winter Queen, Jaina, Agra, Gaera from the AU. I could go on and on and on and on. Basically, any female character who was from, let's see, BFA and Shadowlands. Yeah, all of them. All of them. Those all fall into the category of extreme character assassination. Even Lillian wasn't exempt from just being written poorly. But Alexstrasza somehow managed to squeak by with nary a problem, partly because she just didn't have a big role in either of those two expansions. Oh, Lady Ashvane, Ashera. Yeah, even the villains didn't really escape from being written incredibly poorly. Like, Lady Ashvane being a traitorous bitch who wanted to take the throne for herself, that's an awesome storyline! And yet somehow they managed to write her in a way that made her just also a disgusting human being? And unlikable in any way? Not that they made Jaina likable instead. Jaina was also unlikable through the entire process of the Alliance side of BFA. I actually played through it because I was playing my Night Elf Demon Hunter at the time. I played through the entire plotline. I was like, what the hell? Why is Jaina so annoying and just saying and doing awful things? And like, why is Lady Ashvane not this, you know, scene-stealing villain? Because her character on a piece of paper would definitely be this kind of like, in my opinion, what she should have been was like this sort of bombastic, more charismatic, scene-stealing, someone who could out-talk Jaina, because Jaina's traditionally was a bit quiet, not terribly introverted, but just not great at communication. Her being not great at communication actually causes an enormous amount of problems in her life. So to have Lady Ashvane, if I had written her, to have Lady Ashvane be this kind of character who is more courtly and more charismatic and more with the times. Yes, okay, she's overweight and kind of ugly, but those are manifestations. Like, I mean, we shouldn't use people's looks in order to dictate, but when we're talking about melodrama and we're talking about high fantasy, a person's looks often play into who they are, which sucks. But ignoring that and shoving it aside because it is just a trope, Lady Ashvane could have easily been written to be this scene-stealing, charismatic person that Jaina felt she couldn't necessarily overcome by rallying Tolbarad around her and saying, you know, I am the heir, I know my father and I had our fucking differences, but, you know, this kingdom's being run into the ground. That could have been her arc, and that should have been her arc. You can tell that's where it started and where it kind of tried to end. But the way both Jaina and Ashvane were written, they were written to just be terrible. Like, just both of them as terrible human beings. By terrible, I mean, like, okay, like, think of Captain Hook. Captain Hook's a very good example of a scene-screaming villain who just says and does awful things, but you like him because he's kind of got a pattern to his behavior that's very fun to watch. So if we had taken the Captain Hook approach, Lady Ashvane throwing her opponents in jail should have been met with her being like, and that's that sort of thing, and laughing to herself, and her advisors laughing with her, right? That's the Captain Hook thing, where we see her influence on other people by how they react. But instead, Lady Ashvane would throw her opposers in jail, and all the men around her, because it was always men around her, would be looking uncomfortable and disappointed and upset that this person is doing these awful things, but they can't act because, well, she has authority. And it's like, when you do that, when you show that nobody likes this person, when you show that this person who was written to be charismatic based on some of her early dialogue, you basically tarnish the ability to create an interpersonal conflict between her and your hero, which is Jaina in this case. Now, Jaina ended up being written out of a ton of stuff. She was originally supposed to be there basically as much as Talanji was for the Horde, which is basically she was supposed to be a major hub quest giver. She was supposed to basically set you on a variety of paths, but instead she was sort of replaced with another female character who was less important, but, you know, almost just as forgettable. So Jaina kind of just disappeared and was replaced with this other female character who just had nothing to her. She wasn't that important. She was related to a lore character, which was interesting, but ultimately wasn't all that important. So, again, kind of forgettable. In fact, I'm trying to remember right now which lore character she's the daughter of, and I can't fucking remember for the life of me. But yeah, the major quest giver, they just replaced Jaina. Jaina was supposed to be there the entire time, but I guess they decided that, you know, Ashvane would find her, so yeah. And it's like, the thing is, Ashvane letting Jaina exist would be fun. Like Jaina going into hiding because she doesn't know how to deal with Ashvane, and her running away from her responsibilities, which is just not a Jaina thing to do. All that's out of character for her. Jaina's kind of big on responsibilities. The only time she ever ran away from anything, and it's really important to note this, was when she broke up with her boyfriend, and she ran away from him because he was doing unspeakable bullshit. And she didn't know how to deal with him. That's a valid reason to run away. Should she have tried to stop him? What she might have wanted to do is, after dealing with the emotional fallout, like the only thing we can say that's negative about Jaina, other than her killing a bunch of mages, but that's beside the point and possibly not canon. It's not referenced in a lot of places, but apparently she did kill a whole bunch of mages at one point in time. Is maybe she should have gone to Dalaran and said, look it, Arthas is off his fucking rocker and we need to go deal with him right now because shit's going down, and I know he's my now ex-boyfriend, but this is bad and you guys need to look into it. But it's hard to say. She didn't do that. She kind of appeared later. But every other time she's had to step up and take responsibility, she fucking has. Even though it destroyed her relationship with her parents. Even though it caused enormous drama within the Alliance. Even though it literally made her lose her friendship that she was starting out with the Horde. She's always been there to step forward and take responsibility. But for whatever reason, the writer decided that her being present for the vast majority of the original campaign of BFA just didn't work for him. So basically we see Jaina get approached by Ashvane and run away. Which makes no sense. And it's terrible writing. And it's just not who Jaina is. Jaina would have fought tooth and nail to get to take responsibility where responsibility was due. Instead, she kind of just goes into hiding. Which is just so fucking cowardly, and it doesn't make any damn sense. And, like, the whole thing is, like, they couldn't even write Ashvane in a way, or they chose not to write Ashvane in a way where she was appealing on some level, where people could have a loyalty to the other side of the conflict, right? Because, like, the major conflict that was happening there was between Tol Barad and the Zandalari Empire. You could have had her be more, like, Ashvane be more likable. Make the Alliance feel more loyal to the person who's leading the Alliance, even. But instead they thrashed both characters and then just, like, threw Ashvane in the final raid and just kind of called, or sorry, second last raid, and called it a day. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you take such good characters, like characters that on paper are really good, and just trash them both and make them both seem like utterly poisonous people? And the exact same fucking thing happened in Shadowlands, which is why it's really easy to point a finger at the main story writer, because it's clearly his influence. Because Metzen's never done anything that shitty, and yet somehow Alex managed to do the exact same thing, create an incredibly poisonous personality in the Winter Queen, where the Winter Queen, as far as anybody could tell, was never designed to be like that. Like, she's literally the caretaker of those who are asleep and about to return to the realm of life. She's a peace giver. She's a person who deals with an enormous amount of very silly people. Like, intensely silly people. Like, people who are so silly, I literally wanted to throttle them. Everybody in Ardenweald kind of drives me nuts. But the Winter Queen, instead of being this, she could have been, like, here's how I would have done the Winter Queen. We've got the exact same situation going on. The Ardenweald is starving, just like every other part of the afterlife, because no more souls are coming to that area. So they are slowly starting to be forced into cannibalizing souls to save the souls that are almost ready to go back. It's like anybody who's just got there, basically, they're being pruned, and all the energy is withdrawing inwards as much as it can, so that the souls that are almost ready to hatch can go back to the realm of the living and maybe help fix what's gone wrong? Right? Like, they don't know, because there's no real communication between the various parts of the afterlife until the heroes arrive. Right? So, like, we take the Ardenweald situation, and we keep that. That's intact. So, each of the different afterlives are dealing with the lack of spiritual energy one way or another. Some of them are cannibalizing things, some of them are losing control of their people, so on and so forth. But we take the Winter Queen, and instead of having her just sort of come in an imperialistic way, walk up to one of the satyrs who cares for the dream seeds, the place where souls are kept until they're ready to hatch back out into the realm of the living as a reincarnation sort of cycle, instead of having her come up and sorrow with him. Because that is what should have happened. If you wanted to make the Winter Queen both have to make terrible decisions and put the life of Ysera at risk, and have her make that terrible decision on screen, she should have knelt down beside him and cried with him and then said sorry to the soul of Ursoc, and then taken it. But instead, she just meanders in and basically sets her people to fight off the Dreamkeeper, and while he's bleeding and sobbing on the ground, she just sort of looks at him and then destroys the seed and then walks away. How is that not character assassination? It is. There's nothing about the Winter Queen and her situation and the people that are around her that says that she would be like that. And yet, she got written that way. On a piece of paper, she should have been a very mellow, imperial, royal type character, because she obviously is called a queen. But at the same time, she should have a deep connection to her people and to the Dream Seeds. And instead they just made her cruel when they didn't have to. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that, like, if the same plots had happened and Metzen hadn't gotten hurt, this is what happened in real life. Metzen wrote World of Warcraft, he wrote the Bible for World of Warcraft, he wrote tons and tons of lore shit for World of Warcraft, he was ahead of story for over a decade, but he, I think what it is, he got 2 slip discs in his back, or a couple of herniated discs in his back, which meant that he couldn't walk or stand or basically do anything without extreme pain. So he got herniated discs in his back, and basically the cure for that was either take a lot of pain meds, which he went with to start, because that's usually how they deal with it. They're like, you know, maybe you'll just be able to cope, you'll just take some pain meds and everything will be fine. He wasn't coping, he was in a lot of pain, and he was like, it's getting so bad I can't even sit in a chair for a couple of hours. Like, it's getting so bad that I'm literally lying in bed and in a lot of pain. Like, these are things that I've heard from interviews with him. So, or read from interviews with him. So, he was in a lot of pain, and he basically retired based on the fact that he really needed to go into surgery, have them fuse his spine, and then he needed to lay on his back for like half a year so that everything would heal correctly and he'd stop being in pain. And you can't be taking calls, you can't be doing voice work for Thrall, you can't be doing all of the work he needed to do. So he retired from Blizzard with great sadness and not wanting to. But he trusted Alex for God knows what reason. But Alex had him very much convinced that the story would be well taken care of, and that the plot lines that Metzen had laid out were more than adequate to, you know, keep World of Warcraft going, and so on and so forth. And while I don't remember Metzen ever making any real comments about BFA because he was kind of recovering during that period, while having a surgery and then recovering during that period, for Shadowlands, he basically came back right away and said, as soon as I get better, yeah, as soon as I get better. He appeared at BlizzCon. He was undercover at BlizzCon during one of the things, and he was just sort of like, I'm gonna be coming back to Blizzard, and I was just sort of like, oh, okay, good. But I hadn't realized just how bad things had gotten until Shadowlands hit, and I went, oh no. This is what the other guy's writing really is. And then the fucking lawsuit hit, and it was like, oh, this is what this other guy's writing really fucking is, isn't it? Yeah, it really, really is. So Metzen coming back, he couldn't really change much of what happened in Dragonflight, other than some, like, I assume he did some character writing in the Emerald Dream stuff, because it feels a little bit more like him. Some of the silly things that kind of happen. Because I know he was a story consultant for most of Dragonflight. Not the very beginning of it, but afterwards. War Within is when he took back the reins and he's back being head of story. Like, fuck. So, I mean, you can sit there and say, well, BFA and Shadowlands are a fever dream, and, you know, Dragonflight's a little bit nicer, but it's still kind of not out of character for any of the characters, but just sort of like an excursion to the left with other writers. And now we're back on track. You can say that. You can. But I feel like some of these characters that got utterly thrashed during BFA and Shadowlands especially really deserve to be... What would be the right way of putting it? Readdressed? Brought back in some way? So that we can see what it would look like if these characters, that on paper seem really cool, had been written by somebody who didn't hate certain categories of human beings. Because I feel like there could have been some really good storytelling, especially with Shadowlands. Shadowlands suffered so much because the main campaign was so badly written. And I don't mean it's badly written for World of Warcraft. It's not badly written if you want to write a novel where a lot of terrible things happen to your characters. Like, you want to Games of Thrones it, right? You just take all your characters, you make them, you kill them, you have bad things happen to them, you kill some more of them, you introduce some new characters, you kill those ones too. Like, if you want to do that, that's a style of writing, and it can be done well, and it can be done like Shadowlands. But at the end of the day, when you take characters that are so cool like that, who could have been written by somebody who has a passion for like the high melodrama and the sort of I don't want to say lowbrow, but lowbrow humor is kind of just part and parcel of World of Warcraft, where, you know, you have to stick your hands in poop in at least once in every expansion, which is both gross, but also intensely funny to me, because I'm intensely immature. Like, where was my poop quest in BFA? I don't think there was one. Well, wait, where was my poop quest in Shadowlands? There really wasn't one. See, we were missing the poop quest, and that's the reason why everything went south. And it's like, okay, well, what was there a poop quest in the War Within? Technically, no. We got barfed on instead. Which just took me by surprise, but also just made me roar with laughter. I'm like, yeah, we found the poop quest. World of Warcraft is back to normal, you guys. Do I have one of them up here? This, by the way, is how I guarantee that all my stuff ends up the same damn color every damn time. So I kind of hope, because as much as people are very, 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 very angry about, you know, Shadowlands existing at all, part of me wants to go back there with Metzen and see what he actually does with everything there. I want to know what he would have done. I want to know what it would have looked like. I want to know what it would have played like. I want to know how these grand themes of, like, betrayal and desperation and starvation and, you know, violence and hatred and dealing with, like, the fallout of the loss of Anduin's innocence and... I just realized I have an interior of the mouth. I want it to be written with more interest and less cruelty. I want to know what these characters would be like if they were handled by Metzen. Because I feel like we've missed out on an amazing world, like an amazing chunk of existence, the realm of the dead, just based on the fact that it wasn't written by somebody who wanted to give us a story that ended in good feelings. Everything I see, beauty in the cause above, lost and hold on me, 'cause I'm a sinner, I'm not a saint. Because, I mean, I'd really like to see... I'd really like to see the real versions of the characters, so to speak. I'd also like some resolution where we didn't get a lot of it in Shadowlands. Like, I like the Covenant quests, like the quests that you did at max level for each of the afterlives. Those were pretty cool. Korthia quest was a little eh. The Zera Mortis quests were deeply interesting, and there was a lot. I feel like there was a lot more that could have been there, a lot more information that we were lacking. But the lack of information actually kind of helped a little bit, because that way there was no way to twist it in a way that made it evil and miserable. Because people are just, you know, ready to toss the entire expansion in the toilet. And I understand the instinct to do that. We are less likely to see a resolution to what happened there, and why it happened, and if it has any consequences for the future. I really hope it does, personally, even though I know a lot of people would immediately just go, No! No, I don't want that! It's no good, it's no good, I don't like it! No, don't bring it back! Don't give us any more information, I don't want to know! This didn't happen, not one little bit. And it's like, well, okay, I hear your anger, I understand where it's coming from, but at the same fucking time, there's information here that could potentially actually change things in terms of where the plot's currently going. And if we demand hard enough that we do something stupid, like remove Jar Jar from the plot, so that we don't end up with Sith Jar Jar, Count Dooku just sounds like a good Sith name for a fucking Jar Jar, don't it? we end up with a completely incoherent storyline and removal of really interesting plot lines that would have actually made so much more sense if we just let it be, you know? Because I want to know more about the first one. I want to know more about who the first ones were, what their purpose was. Are they fully creator deities, or are they also functioning in a universe where things need to be done a certain way and they have rules where they themselves can't break them? Are they still around, or are they gone? If they're gone, who the fuck destroyed them? And if their own creations destroyed them, which creations destroyed them? I'm very curious about all of these things. But if we turn around and say, well, no, I don't like the Shadowlands because the Zereth Waters, it makes no damn sense, we don't get to find out more stuff about the first ones, and who they were, and what they did, and why they did it. Because here's my question. Because we know that Azeroth is a world soul that is so goddamn powerful, it's the prime world soul even, it's so powerful that every single flavor of magic has done its goddamn best to try and take over the entire planet multiple times. I actually counted back which powers that be tried to take over Azeroth, and the answer is every single one. Every single power that be, like in terms of the six types of magic and the 4 elemental planes, all of them have tried to take over Azeroth. All of them have. Which means that Azeroth might not actually be aligned with any of them, which means she could actually be the soul of a first one. She could actually be the only first one left, and everybody's trying to twist her one way or another in order to force the situation one way or another. Because I was thinking, what if Beladar, the giant fuck-off crystal that everyone's currently going, that's gotta be Azeroth, right? What if it's not? What if it's just a big old crystal designed specifically to try and attune Azeroth to the light? The same way the old gods were there trying to attune Azeroth to the void, and the same that the Titans were there trying to attune her to the arcane, and the same as when Sargeras kept trying to show up there and tried to attune her to Fel, and the same as when Elune was there and tried to attune her to nature, and the same as when the fucking Dreadlords came there and tried to create an entire frickin' system to attune Northrend to the realm of the dead. Every single type of magic has done this. And the 4 elemental planes are basically brushed up right against Azeroth. All 4 of them are. Water, earth, air, and fire. All of them are brushed up against her. They are literally leaking in certain places because the 4 elemental lords and lady are trying their damnedest to push their way into Azeroth and conquer parts of it for themselves. And the elemental lords actually worked with the old gods for a while. All of these things are true. So the only one that was missing was an influence from the light. But what if Beladar isn't Azeroth? What if Beladar is just a big old chunk of Naru crystal that's designed specifically to attune Azeroth to the light, so that when Azeroth hatches, she is a light creature instead of being anything else. Everybody's been trying to influence her. So if Beladar isn't Azeroth, and Azeroth is actually deeper down, which is what I'm thinking is actually true at this point, then yeah, if she's deeper down, and the reason why Sargeras slapped the sword in where he did was literally to try and dislodge the light crystal that was going to throw everything out of balance. Basically a big old, if I can't have her, no one can, but I'm definitely gonna, you know, get rid of this thing that I know has probably had the biggest influence on her so far. Yeah. Yeah. Either that or it was potentially set up by Aman'Thul or Norganon the same way that Elenir, which is the name of the first world tree, because as it turns out, the first world tree wasn't the first world tree at all. Neither was the second first world tree, or the other first world tree. There was like 3 world trees that were like, oh no, this was the very first world tree. No, it fucking wasn't. The very, 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 very first one was planted by Eonar, who is a titan, who is aligned not just with the arcane, but also with life magic, and she was in contact with Elune, who's potentially a titan of life, as opposed to being a titan of the arcane. We don't have a title for Elune, but if we say that Elune is the opposite of the Winter Queen, because they refer to each other as sisters, one for life and one for death, and that they work together, if Eonar was aligned with Elune, because she has some nature magic about her, and was convinced by Elune to place down this seed, the original World Tree seed, the roots of which are hanging around all over the place in Azj-Kahet, then it's very possible that the tree also was trying to influence her. And Aman'Thul had it removed. Like, he basically, after the tree took root, he ripped it out of the ground and basically said, no, we're not doing this. Because he had his own plans. But everybody basically seemed to have their own plans. And that's kind of a big old problem. Because if Azeroth is non-aligned... Because here's the thing that actually came out recently in the lore, in the War Within, is... I need a clean page, because I don't have a clean page right now. Okay, clean page right now. So, previous to this is how magic in World of Warcraft was organized. This is how it was organized. This is how everybody understood it. So we had light magic and void magic, nature magic or life magic and death magic, arcane magic, and fel magic, or chaos. And then we had fire, frost is the one that's most aligned with this one, air here, and earth here. So, you know, the light can use fire, or it can use lightning type things. The void tends to use frost, and earth/shadow type things. Aw, thank you for Mellow. I was actually making a Mellow picture. Hello. So that's the way it used to be. That's the way it used to be. We understood it as a flat plane where there were extremes on each side. But recently, in the War Within, there's a theorist who apparently knows more about magic than everybody else, who says this is how magic actually looks. It is a pyramid with a center point. That pyramid has fire, air, earth, and frost, or water, but it's frost. We have the 4 elemental planes, and then we have light. I don't remember which one is which. Void. Nature. Death. Hell. and arcane. And if this shape is correct, there's a center point. Center point where all of these flavors of magic are all trying to reach a center point. All of them are trying to reach the center. If all of them are trying to reach the center, what is that center? That right there is Azeroth. It's at the middle. That's what's there. It's us. We're right here. And every single type of magic is trying to lay claim to this, because if they do, it'll unbalance the entire structure of magic itself, as far as I can tell. And if it unbalances the entire structure, then whoever pulls on it hardest wins. She has to remain neutral. If she doesn't, everything in the entire universe is going to collapse and go to shit. Which means that, here's the fucky thing, which means that if Xal'atath is Azeroth, it means that her work on because like what she was doing is, we had Belladar, right? Big old crystal in the goddamn ceiling, all cracked and shit like this, and it's going void, void light, over and over and over again. When we watch Xal'atath attacking it with her, definitely not a void version of the Heart of Azeroth, and she kept on she was drawing power into it, she was draining off energy from it. We know what the heart, well, I think they're calling it the Heart of Darkness or something like that, whatever. The Void Heart. We know what element went into that. Galakrond. Galakrond, who is the granddaddy of all fucking dragons. Galakrond was influenced by the Void. We know that much. But what he was influenced by was some sort of great devourer. Something that wants to devour whole worlds, whole existences. He is the power behind Deathwing. He's the power behind Galakrond. He is possibly the power behind the Great Destroyer that took out Locust Walker's planets, the planet of the Ethereals, who basically are only held together by shreds of arcane energy and are basically, you know, one wrong move away from discorporating entirely. Like, if Locust Walker isn't lying, and I don't think he is in this case, the power of the Great Devourer went into the Void Heart that Xal'atath then turned around and didn't drain away the light from Belladar, but was draining away the void from Belladar. Belladar has been switching back and forth between light and void over and over again. And instead of draining away the light to make it permanently void, she was draining away the void. So if Xal'atath is Azeroth, which is the standing concept, I don't know whether everybody has cottoned on to the fact that Belladar is not Azeroth. Xal'atath is Azeroth. Xal'atath has been working to get rid of her void influence. She's actually trying to unvoidify herself, because it's, you know, a big deal. It's actually really, really important that she doesn't fall to the void, because if she falls to the void, that's it. Magic collapses and everybody dies. So even though Xal'atath is aligned with the void right now, she's actively trying to unalign herself with the void. She's trying to undo the damage that Sargeras did when he got rid of Belladar. Because Beladar was probably the only thing that was keeping her from falling to the influence of the old gods. She needs to have each influence included at the same time in the same amounts in order to remain neutral and therefore not collapse the universe. So that's my current standing theory, is that Azeroth is actually at the center of the big D4 that is magic, and she's doing her very goddamn best to not collapse like a flan in a cupboard. Because if she gets pulled in one direction too hard, everything's gonna go bad. But that's just a theory. A much better theory than anything that stupid game theory guy ever came up with. Now, how do I do this one again? Where the tits is my mouse? There it is. Okay. I see what I need to do. No. Boom! Wow. Closer. Good enough. I like it.
So suddenly, you're poison the air I breathe. But if you don't hate me, then why would you break me? Feel it in my bones, I'm about to lose control. Only so much I'm taking, so get yourself to safety. Cause baby, a storm is coming. You better heed the one and pray. Don't stay, run away, 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 away. Feel how the rain is pouring. I'm a child like a hurricane.
Yes. Nice. We also realized that we forgot to ask you about the sketch. We started doing the line work and then went, oh, no, we forgot to ask! Cheers. That was me supposed to be just warming up my hand and then, you know, going off on a goddamn tangent because I'm all fired up about people being like, I don't like the current lore, so I'm gonna just ignore it and say that it didn't happen. Because I'm really big on, like, a good writer can take any mess of a story and make it good. You write yourself into a frickin' cardboard box, you can write yourself out of it again. And I don't think anything needs to be retconned. I think where things are right now in terms of what's going on in the storyline in World of Warcraft, I don't think, in my opinion, that you need to eliminate what happened in Shadowlands, as badly written as it was, because the major plot points are just fine. The individual writing was trash, but the plot is fine. Especially since, like, a lot of people are just like, you know, they pulled Shadowlands out of their ass, they used, like, you know, barely established information to ruin what should have been a really cool Afterlife, you know, expansion if they were ever gonna do it, and it's like, you know, this was planned from kind of Legion. There's literally stuff in Legion that references the Shadowlands. There's literally stuff during the Argus fight that, like, Argus literally talks about that it has a lot to do with shit's gonna go down if Argus dies. Hell yeah.
Fuck.
Chromie, did you ever get the vacuum toy in WoW that lets you vacuum up critters? I was looking through my toy box the other day, or my toy collection the other day, and in the game, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's a critter vacuum! I forgot I had this! And I was vacuuming critters.
Fuck.
It took so long to get this mustache right. Because, like, when you use a mustache for expressions, mustaches actually move differently than a mouth, because obviously they're not quite the same thing as a mouth. You have to kind of, like,
Fuck.
do stuff, make it work. I saw the cutest video the other day of, it was John Cena on some sort of talk show, and, for whatever reason, they had him arm wrestling a little girl. And, of course, John Cena put up a great effort, but the little girl obviously was training for, you know, all 5 years of her life. And absolutely wrecked John Cena. And, I just have to say, I deeply appreciate wrestlers. I really do. Like, some of them are not great people in real life, but an outstanding amount of them are just really decent people. Even when their characters don't usually allow them to be that way necessarily in front of fans. They're all really decent guys. I shouldn't whitewash like put them all on the same pedestal. A lot of them are really decent guys and gals. Sometimes I'm actually kind of glad that my VTuber is not nearly as well animated as it could be, because if it was, you'd see me making even more faces than I currently am. I realize I'm changing my expression because I can see my avatar moving when I don't realize that I'm the one doing that. Keeps happening. TV. There we go. There we go. Helpless, defeated, holding on to something I needed. Looking for a reason, finding all you want in a demon. Helpless, holding on to something I've needed. Looking for a reason, finding all you want in a demon.
You said that you've been lonely, makes you cold as ice. Hard to get to know me, but better than the lies. No way I'd let you slip by. No way I'd let you say bye. You said there ain't no reason, but I'll sit here every day, waiting for the moment I won't feel like I should stay.
No way.
I'll let you slip by. No way I'll let you say bye. Can we watch it fade away? Can we let it
There we go.
fade away? We'll take it day by day. Can we watch it fade away?
Can we let it play? Can we let it play? Can we let it play? Can we let it?
You said that you've been searching, silencing your mind, trying to be patient but running out of time. No way I'd let you slip by. No way I'd let you say bye. You said there ain't no meaning, I just wanna understand everything that led us here, the teardrops when I hold your hand. No way I'll let you slip by. No way I'll let you say bye.
Can we let it play? Can we let it
Take it day by day.
Can we let it And we let it away. And we
See it on my face, I made up my mind. Not another day, you're on borrowed time. Let me get away, yeah I'm running, yeah I'm running. So love me or leave me, I'm standing alone. Can't shake a feeling that lives in my bones. Lie to me, tell me you wish that you could, but nothing you gave me is worth what you took. 'Cause baby, when I'm gone for good.
I like it. I like it.
Feel it rising up, then I push it down. Saying you're in love, I could go without. Let me get away. It's over now. It's over now.
We got a lot of work done on this one. We got some good work done on the Chromie one. I work until my wrist feels a certain way. The point before painful is my ideal. We're getting more done each day, so that's always good. Background's gonna be lots of fun. Lots of fun to sketch out. Speaking of password.